first scripture reading today is from the 17th chapter of Exodus, verses 1 through 7. The whole Israelite community broke up camp and set out from the Sin desert to continue their journey as the Lord commanded. They set up their camp at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. The people argued with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses said to them, "Why are you arguing with me? Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people were very thirsty for water there, and they complained to Moses, "Why did you bring us out of Egypt? To kill us, kill our children and our livestock with thirst?" So Moses cried out to the Lord, "What should I do with these people? They are getting ready to stone me." The Lord said to Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of Israel's elders with you. Take in your hand the shepherd's rod that you used when you struck the Nile River, and go. I will be standing there in front of you on the rock at Horeb. Hit the rock. Water will come out of it, and the people will be able to drink." Moses did so while the elders watched. He called the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites argued with and tested the Lord, asking, "Is the Lord really with us or not?"
Our sermon text this morning is from the Gospel of John, chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 4 through 30. Jesus had to go through Samaria. He came to a Samaritan city called Sychar, which was near the land Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. Jesus was tired from his journey, so he sat down at the well. It was about noon. A Samaritan woman came to the well to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me some water to drink." His disciples had gone into the city to buy him some food. The Samaritan woman asked, "Why do you, a Jewish man, ask for something to drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" Jews and Samaritans didn't associate with each other. Jesus responded, "If you recognized God's gift and who is saying to you, 'Give me some water to drink,' you would be asking him, and he would give you living water." The woman said to him, "Sir, you don't have a bucket, and the well is deep. Where would you get this living water? You aren't greater than our father Jacob, are you? He gave this well to us, and he drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks from the water that I will give will never be thirsty again. The water that I give will become in those who drink it a spring of water that bubbles up into eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water, so that I never have to be thirsty and will never need to come here to draw water." Jesus said to her, "Go, get your husband and come back here." The woman replied, "I don't have a husband." "You are right to say, 'I don't have a husband,'" Jesus answered. "You've had 5 husbands, and the man you are with now isn't your husband. You've spoken the truth." The woman said, "Sir, I see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you and your people say that it is necessary to worship in Jerusalem." Jesus said to her, "Believe me, woman, the time is coming when you and your people will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You and your people will worship what you don't know. We worship what we know because salvation is from the Jews. But the time is coming and is here when true worshipers will worship in spirit and truth. The Father looks for those who worship him this way. God is spirit, and it is necessary to worship God in spirit and truth." The woman said, "I know that the Messiah is coming, the one who is called the Christ. When he comes, he will teach us everything." Jesus said to her, "I am the one who speaks with you." Just then, Jesus' disciples arrived and were shocked when he was talking with the woman. But no one asked, "What did you want?" or "Why were you talking to her?" The woman put down her water jar and went into the city. She said to the people, "Come and see a man who told me everything I've done. Could this man be the Christ? They left the city and were on their way to see Jesus. So some context for this story. This one's buried deep in context. A reminder, Samaria was this land that Jewish people avoided at all cost. They would add days to a journey's walk to go around Samaria. The Jewish people, the Samaritans, were cousins. But they had split long ago over the law, the Torah, the prophets, and they worshiped in different places. They also didn't keep the kosher laws. Anytime pigs are mentioned, it's generally because they're in Samaria. They kept pigs. So Jewish people avoided it. Jesus seemed to end up there a lot. So they're making their way through. The disciples go to get food, which is remarkable because this food would not be kosher food. And Jesus is tired, and it's the middle of the day. It's the hottest part of the day. And he meets a woman who comes for water at the well. Now, this is not the time of day that women would come to the well to get water. You don't walk in the hottest part of the day to carry a cistern of water back with you. It'd be heavy. It'd be several gallons. She came at that time of day to avoid running into anybody. She didn't want to see anybody at the well. She did not have good interactions with people. She received a lot of judgment and cruelty. So she made her way in the heat, hoping to not run into anybody. And when she saw Jesus sitting there by the well, I can imagine she was a little disturbed. Men didn't do that work. Men didn't go to the well. They didn't carry water. The men were too busy. They were learning, they were studying, they were doing trades with their hands. They didn't handle that stuff. That was women's work. The women went to the well. So not only was Jesus a man at the well, he was a Jewish man at the well. She must have been very, very confused as to why he was there. And they have this interaction. This is one of the statements in the Gospel of John where Jesus, in usually kind of roundabout ways, asserts his divinity. He does it at the end. We lose it in the translation, but he says, I am. What is God's name? I am. When you read an English Bible, and there's Lord in all capitals, it's that translation of the name of God. So John has these 7 or 8 I am statements, depending on how you count, where Jesus asserts his divinity. I would love to have known what the disciples were thinking. John kind of asserts a couple of questions maybe they had when they walked up and saw Jesus talking to this woman. Number one, Jewish men didn't talk to women. That was not okay. Number two, they really didn't talk to Samaritan women. So I'm sure they were wondering what he was doing. Why was he doing it? Did he expect them to do it too? I mean, they're already in Samaria. They already had to go to this non-kosher market and buy food that they're now going to have to eat against everything they've ever been taught and everything they've ever learned about what's important to God and what's not important to God is being challenged. But in this interaction with Jesus, Jesus in a roundabout way points out something that she would have been ridiculed for, the fact that she's with somebody who's not her husband. Now, out of risk of mansplaining to the women here, the system has been rigged against women from the beginning. In the Bible, you can go back to the creation story. Whose fault is the fall of all humanity? Eve. It's the woman's fault. The dumb man just showed up, and she gave him something to eat, and he's like, I'll eat it. In the early church, we find evidence of women being revered as leaders in the church. And over time, those paintings and things are defaced. And the role of women is covered up. And Mary Magdalene becomes a prostitute. She's not a prostitute in the Bible. That's not in there. In Jesus' world, women could have nothing. They could inherit nothing. They could own nothing. Their livelihood solely depended on men. So if they were married, if they didn't have children, and their husband died, what do? Now, if the husband had a brother, they were supposed to kind of step in and take the role, and then you became the brother's wife. Man, some awkward family gatherings. And then if that brother had children with that wife, they weren't his children, they were his dead brother's children legally. So apparently this woman had been married 5 times. Not because she wanted to. Husbands kept dying, and she needed somebody to take care of her, to provide for her, because she couldn't do it herself. And finally, this last one, either they hadn't gotten around to the marriage part, or at this point she's like, well, if I marry him, he's surely going to die, so maybe I won't marry this one, and we'll see if he lives a little longer. But with that came ridicule and cruelty, enough so that she didn't want to meet anybody. She didn't want to run into anybody. She just wanted to go get what she needed, go home, and not talk to anybody. Humans have always had a tendency to be pretty judgmental. And in our judgment, we can get pretty cruel also. And unfortunately, in our modern context, those outside of the Christian faith, when they look at the Christian faith, they find some of the most judgmental people around. Not people filled with compassion and mercy and forgiveness. Not people filled with kindness and love for other people. No, it's people who are the first to judge and the quickest to point out others' faults, according to them. And that's a lot of people's experience in the church. I remember at my last church I served, there was a younger woman that started bringing her child. They had a Wednesday youth night, and she started bringing her child, and I hadn't been there very long. I didn't have a long history with this church. I didn't know anything about her. But turns out she grew up in that church and got pregnant as a teen and quickly left that church. She did not receive kindness, warmth, compassion. She did not have people reaching out going, how do you need help? She received ridicule, judgment. I'm the product of a teen mom. That kind of hit close to home. And unfortunately, there are far too many people whose experiences are just that. They find the church to be the most judgmental place, the least accepting, not the most accepting, not the place to come and find comfort, solidarity with others, the place to be lifted up, the place for help. Quite the opposite. So these patterns in humanity are still present. The same thing this woman experienced from both her Jewish cousins and the other Samaritans is alive and well. And one of our biggest challenges in the modern church is showing people that that's not the way it's supposed to be. Because the Bible's unclear about lots of things, frustratingly so. Like, there are plenty of times I'm studying a passage for a sermon, and it's like, Jesus, if you could have thrown an extra line in there and just really cleared up this point, we would have saved a whole lot of writing and trees being killed for books to be published, and my job would be easier. Things could be more definitive. But a lot of times it's not. However, when it comes to judging others, it is. And Jesus is really, really clear. We point to the story of the woman pulled out for adultery, dragged into the streets. Now, I'm good at math, but I wasn't a math major. I'm pretty sure adultery takes more than one person, technically speaking. Yet she's the only one there. If she was found in the act of adultery, so was the other person. He's not there. How does Jesus approach the crowd who's picking up stones, ready to do what is right under the law? Okay. If you're without any sin, go ahead. Throw your stone. Slowly they drop them and they walk away. If you judge, you will be judged. If you don't offer the grace and forgiveness you have been given by God to other people, then you have not received it from God. Jesus talks about this living water. What does this living water mean? There's lots of theories, lots of people have different ideas. But it is something that quenches the spirit. It doesn't go away. It's not fleeting like drinking water on a hot day. You will have to drink water again on a hot day. However, what Jesus is offering is something that is lasting. It quenches spiritual thirst because we all long to be spiritually complete, to be spiritually whole. Since the time of creation, we have been seeking wholeness. It's been missing from us. There's separation between God and the people. What Jesus comes to do, what gets called salvation, is bringing wholeness back to creation, to all humanity, so that people can once again be spiritually fulfilled and at peace. That is the peace Jesus offers. Peace I give to you. My peace I leave with you. Wholeness, shalom. But we have to fight against our lowest denominator. The judgmental part of us that is so easy to take over. But because we all are guilty of it. I didn't make you raise your hands, because then I'd have to call a lot of you liars when you didn't raise your hand. About who in here is judgmental? Yeah, we're all judgmental. Sometimes we think we're justified in our judgment because we're right. It never justifies the judgment. We are to approach all other people from a place of understanding that we too are broken, we too are in need of God's wholeness and healing. We too have received grace and mercy each time we mess up and miss the mark. And the only thing and the only way we can approach others is with that same heart. offering compassion, offering healing, offering forgiveness, offering love, offering our kindness. Kindness is lacking so much in our current world, and cruelty is growing, and self-righteous cruelty, and it's so disturbing how people relish in the cruelty towards others because they think they're right. We all get it wrong, and none of us want to be on the receiving end of that. And the biggest challenge we have is when we see it happening, our job as followers of Jesus is to use the voice we have been given to speak out against it, to remind others of the grace and forgiveness they have received, and to show others the same. The Samaritan woman that day received living water, spiritual wholeness. Did she have to go back to the well? Yep, she got thirsty again. But how do we know she received spiritual wholeness? How does she respond to Jesus? She planned her whole day around avoiding people. But what does she do? She leaves her clay pot full of water. She doesn't even take it with her, and she goes into town to tell everybody what she experienced. The first ones in the Bible, each step of the way, to share the good news with others are women. Over and over. She goes in to the very people she avoids and said, "Come and see. This prophet told me everything I've done. Could this be the Christ, the Messiah that's been promised?" And they all go and they all see. And if you read further, it says, many came to faith that day. One of the things we have to get over, this roadblock that we all have set up for ourselves, is the work of the church happens outside of the building of the church. The work of the church doesn't happen Sunday mornings. Important parts of faith do, worship, fellowship, but not the work of the church. That takes place during the week when we're not here. And what we are called to do is put ourselves in places and with people to seek justice, to show kindness, to pour out forgiveness and mercy each and every day. This isn't one of those callings that's like a spiritual gift where it's like, well, that's my spiritual gift, but that's not my spiritual gift. I hate to break this to you. This is a common calling for all of us. If you follow Jesus, this is your calling. You don't get to play the spiritual gift card. Here's the good news, though. We're called to this work together. We do each have gifts and talents that when they combine, they equip us to do that work and to do it well. So as we're in this period of Lent and reflection, what are the barriers in you that are in the way of living out your calling? Have you received living water? Is your spirit still thirsty? Trust that the God who created the heavens and the earth equips you for this work. The Spirit dwells in you, and in those moments will provide what you need. Amen.